So Johnny, a couple of weeks ago, we did a video all about lambics. What are lambics? But that was all about the Pajottenland and that particular part of the world. Today, we're going to look at spontaneous British beers.
We are, and today is a strong word to use, Bradley, because one of these beers is indeed called Today.
Today.
So in that video all about lambic, we called it What Even Is Lambic, and you can watch it in one of these corners now. We talked about how the processes developed in the production of lambic are super important and protected, but the actual locations are not. So all of these beers, out of respect, haven't called themselves lambic, but they're made in the same way.
Got you.
So they all use a turbid mash, which we talked about in that video. They're then cooled in a coolship in a giant swimming pool where it gets infected with wild yeast, and then it's aged in barrels for many, many years, between 1, 5, even more years.
And mixed.
And then mixed 1, 2 and 3 year blends to make what's called a Gers. And that's what all these 3 beers are inspired by.
The cool thing about this, Johnny, is that they all sort of share that same method that they do in the Pajottenland, but the thing that makes them unique is where they come from.
Exactly. So like the local ingredients, the local microflora, the yeasts and the bacteria.
The terroir.
The terroir
Yes.
is what makes these beers unique and different to lambic. So we've got 3 amazing beers from 3 very different parts of the country, and we're going to see what variation there is between these 3 and indeed between those of the Pajottenland. So let's start with who I regard as possibly the best brewery in the UK. Ooh. Which is Burning Sky. They make all kinds of beer incredibly well, whether it's West Coast IPA, Belgian Saison, lambic-style beers, beautiful stouts, classic cask. And this is their Coolship number 3, so it's the 3rd one they've released. It's coming out, it's coming.
It's lively,
it's going
lively,
for it.
Johnny.
So before that beer climbs all the way out of the bottle and into our glasses, it's time for a quick intermission, which is something we're making a habit of at the moment on the Craft Beer channel, but that is for a very good reason, and that is that I came down to Burning Sky just a couple of weeks after we shot that video because I was taking photos for my new book, A Year in Beer, which is all about seasonal drinking, and I came down to Burning Sky to take photos of their final Coolship brew of the year, and of course I learnt so much while I was here. And of course got some extra beautiful videos of the brew so that you can see exactly the process that was happening for the next couple of vintages for Burning Sky. But I mean, before we dive into these beers, I thought it would be great to show you that and also to tell you lots of things we didn't know when we first tasted that beer, which is that there's rye and spelt in that mash as well, and obviously raw wheat as well, which is, you know, part of the lambic tradition, and also loads and loads of hops went in. It smelled absolutely amazing when they were filling the kettle and boiling it all up, and then obviously putting it into the Coolship. It smelled like caramel and honey, like acacia honey, like really floral. I can't tell you what's in the bags. I've been sworn to secrecy, so don't put that in the comments. But I mean, by all means, have a guess. And now we'll go back to me and Brad at the sofa. Whoa! He's got there in time.
That's all right. It's died off now.
So all of these beers are fermented, re-fermented in the bottle. So there's lots of activity going on. So this is made exactly as they do in the Pajottenland. It even uses, I think, a little bit of Girardin, so proper lambic in there, along with the spontaneous Coolship beers of Sussex, where Burning Sky are. And it smells f***ing amazing.
Oh, it's a fizzy boy. It's like a Cocoa Pops of a beer.
So, there's hay, there's licorice, there's scrumpy cider and apple skin.
It's like Tang Fastic Haribo to me as well, like a real sort of crazy
real sherbet note.
Sherbety note.
Oh, get in me.
They just do wild things to your mouth, don't they? Like everything's going off.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely insane. I love loads of carbonation. A great lambic should have loads of carbonation to it. So it's super fizzy, which adds to the sherbet note. There's a good hint of bitterness there as well. And it's not just on the finish, like maybe like a beer cell one, which is a bit hoppier, would have. It's got loads of really green, tangy hoppiness throughout the beer.
It's a slightly different to like a sort of lambic that I would have tried before in that way, I think. With the bitterness that's there, I'm not used to. But it feels quite sort of fresh and hedgerow sort of bitterness somehow. I don't know. It's like a green bitterness to it.
Yeah, definitely. There is a greenness to it, and I think in the UK We're quite used to bitterness. In Belgium, their beers are generally a lot sweeter. So all they've done is just amp up that bitterness a little bit to be a little bit more kind of British, but it's still got all of those incredibly fresh, lemony, Bretty kind of characters. It's just
super good.
yeah. It's all encompassing. It's all you can think about. I absolutely love it. So we've tried the Furla microflora, which is the region of Sussex that this beer is from. It's still trying to climb out the bottle. And now we're going to go up to Scotland, quite a long way into Scotland, up to Argyll.
That's pretty high up there.
To have what I think was possibly the first British 1, 2 and 3 year old, so Gers style spontaneous beer. Even comes with a pretty little label.
It's nice.
Do you want to crack that and give it a pour? I'll just look at what this says. So 2018, it says, is the vintage. A little essay in there.
Oh, nice. It's not racing up the glass like the last
Like the other one, a bit lower carbonation.
Same way.
So they want to give a sense of place, and I think using local ingredients as well. Irrefutably Scottish.
I like it.
Says the nice little note.
That's what Mel Gibson said at the end of Braveheart.
With his convincing Scottish accent.
Irrefutably Scottish. Smells different again, doesn't it?
So this one feels a bit more floral.
Yeah.
Possibly, I mean, I don't know whether this is just Scotland suggesting something to me, but a little bit of...
You're going to say heather or something?
Heather, yeah.
Bit of heather going on.
But it's very floral, a little bit less Bretty. Even more green, I think. Not hop green, but just much lower carbonation.
Yeah.
Much smoother. Much less bitterness.
Much less acidity for me.
Much less acidity. Way lower PDO and lactobacillus. Like all about that Brett. The Brett's gone to town on it. Feels kind of like an old Orval because, you know, much as I love Brett, it can really eat through a lot of the character of the beer and kind of dominate. And maybe it's gone a bit too far. Maybe they needed a bit more acidity in the blend that they put together. But it's got a lovely honeyed note as well, which is really nice, which might come from a bit of aging or maybe from the malt they've used. It feels like there's much more aged character on this. And depending on what you're looking for from your Gers, depends on whether you want bright, citric hedonism or smooth, slightly more sociable sipping. So it's a strange dichotomy in the making of a Gers because they take years and years to make, but my favourites are the fresh ones. They're the ones that feel like they were brewed yesterday.
So even though it's fresh, it's probably been around for 3 years.
It's been around for 3 or 4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the ones I prefer are yesterday. This one is literally called today.
Right.
So I'm hoping that this one will take the fresh inspiration that the Coolship from Burning Sky had and give us something that's really going to feel fresh and alive and exciting despite the age that's gone into it. Now, at this point, I have to point out that, there's a cork in this one. There's probably a gag in how many beer geeks does it take to open a lambic. But,
at least 2 when it's from Mills. So this is sealed for extra wonderfulness.
Yeah, so we might as well, while I'm working this out, have a little chat about why there might be a cork involved. So caps actually let a little bit of oxygen in.
Yeah.
So what you can do by having a cork and a cap, you can help reduce that. Some people might even wax it. If you don't want a cork, you can use a wax and that'll seal it. That's why some people use wax.
It's so smooth, such a smooth opener of bottles.
He says that, but I fucked it.
Oh dear. I reckon that's good to... The question was, Johnny, how many beer geeks does it take to open a bottle? Should have been how many bottle openers does it take to open a...
How many beer geeks times how many bottle openers to open? So I'm
4
nearly
times
there.
2.
I'm nearly there. There we go.
Hey!
Oh, that was a scary moment because these beers are not easy to come by from Mills. Okay, so here we go. Here's a glass of today. Now, Mills are, one of those very small breweries that have built an incredible reputation for themselves. And the beers can be very hard to get hold of, can be very expensive if you're going to buy on the secondary market. So don't. Just, buy it from the brewery if you can.
And if you miss it,
And if
Just
you miss
wait
it,
for the
that's
next
okay.
one.
There'll be another batch.
Yeah.
So this is today. It's a 5% Gur style beer. And again, that's transporting me right back to the Seine Valley near Brussels. It smells.
It's quite welcoming, isn't it?
Has a wonderful, wonderful lemony aroma, lovely scrumpy kind of character, but also like almost a coppery minerality to it as well, which I get in the really, the absolute best vintages of lambic. It smells incredibly fresh.
I love the sort of the lemony sweetness you get across. Well, the sort of that zinginess that you get across a lot of these. In general, I just think there's such a nice. Just makes me think of summer and like running through fields, Johnny. As
It makes me think of spring, which I think
maybe
is
spring more.
Tour de Gueurs, like lemony aroma, and it makes me think of like wet tarmac, like warm tarmac that's had rain on it, and
That's a good smell.
really fresh mornings, and maybe the last of the frosts. There's just something really visceral
It's a
about
changing
this
of
mineral.
seasons. It's new life, isn't it? It's all of that kind of green, new growth, new green stuff coming on. Very well rounded, Johnny. And it's still going around and around.
So good. So good.
5%.
So that's the lowest ABV of these two beers. And it has the biggest finish of both. It is like biting into a lemon at the end.
Yeah.
Proper citric character. But it's so smooth. It's got the honeyed character from this, but also that biting lactic character from this, but at 2% lower. So full-bodied, so much character to it. It's a perfect blend. And it's just stunning. It's just over a year old in bottle as well, so it feels young and vibrant. Oh, I'm starting to sound like some kind of wine wanker, but that's what this beer does to me.
This, it feels like it's good for me, Johnny. I feel like this beer is good for me. Like, it feels like it's full of like vitamin C and just like stuff that's going to keep me alive for longer. I don't know, it probably isn't, but it just tastes like natural, tastes fresh, like super, super fresh and young and zingy.
Yeah.
For something that's 3 years old, that sort of vitality that's just bursting out of your mouth and the glass, it's kind of amazing. That's why these things are so great.
So the thing we really wanted to learn by doing a British spontaneous beer video is to see if there was a major difference between what's made in Belgium, in the Lambic region, and what's made in the UK. And also, maybe in America and the other places that make amazing spontaneous beer. And what I've learned is I think that the differences are not national by any means. Like, this was hoppy and fresh and bright and zesty. This one was honeyed and soft and much lower amounts of pediococcus and lactobacillus. And then this one definitely had, and I don't know whether I'm making this up, it's from Herefordshire, where many of the great spontaneous ciders are made, and it feels like maybe the Brets are used to eating apples. Maybe there's a definite kind of toffeed apple smoothness that means it can pop like this one while seeming more sweet and sessiony, and maybe there's a link there. So it's a microclimate. It's not a procedure or a place or anything like that. It is a combination of the yeast involved and the blender that went, I want that, because those are the flavours I'm used to.
It's magic, really, at the end of the day. And it's what the place and the brewer brings to it that makes these things so special. And isn't it amazing that you can do that anywhere around the world? And come up with something unique and amazing, but in a sort of similar style. The
lambic brewers have been slammed perhaps sometimes for being too you can't make lambic anywhere else. It's only here where this can happen. I don't necessarily think that's what the brewers are saying. They're just saying, we've tasted spontaneous beers from other places and it doesn't taste like ours. So let's not call it lambic. Let's call it something of itself, something unique as well. And I hope that, almost to some extent, I used to be like, that's quite shitty of the lambic brewers, but actually now I'm more like, no, let's find our own words for it. I love that this has its own name of home, because it's the idea is it tastes of home. I love this, it tastes of today, because I guess what they're saying is next year it won't taste like this. And I love that kind of approach to it. But I do not begrudge calling it Coolship either, because that's the process. And this beer is all about talking about what you think is important in this beer. Here's the beer that tastes of where it's from. Cheers.
Cheers.